What's going on, my good people? Mike Hidalgo here. Thank you for joining us on another FCP Euro DIY. Today we are working on a 2018 Volvo XC90. On today's DIY, while this car may look a little familiar to you, we are going to be upgrading the front brakes. This will be similar to your V90s as well, and some of the Spa chassis models out there. Currently, this car is equipped with what Volvo calls the 18-inch brake package. This is what we have here on the table. This is actually what we covered during a standard DIY a few years ago on the same car with Nate Vincent. The 18-inch brake kit has a 345mm brake disc. And what we are doing today is upgrading it to the 19-inch brake kit. That is a kit that is available to buy on fcpo.com, which includes a 366mm rotor, Bosch pads, new hardware, new set screw, new rattle clip, and the larger caliper bracket needed for this upgrade. The caliper itself is going to be reused and everything else on the car. So again, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We have our new bracket. Everything else is if you were doing a regular brake job, but it's a little bit bigger. But before we get into it, let's take a look at some of the tools we're going to need for this upgrade. All right, for this job, we have a 1/2-inch torque wrench. Probably good to have a 1/2-inch ratchet as well. We're going to sub that out with the impact. We have a 3/8 drive torque wrench. This one's a flex head. We have a caliper hook if we need it. We have our wire brush, flathead screwdriver. We have our piston compressor tool. This is CTA 1465 for single piston calipers. 1/4-inch ratchet, 3/8 drive ratchet. Sockets wise, we have a T30, a 7mm. We have a 11mm hex. We have an 18mm socket and a 19mm socket. We also have a paint pen so we can mark our hardware. Brake clean, of course. We have some liquid moly ceramic paste for our hub and the ears on our pads, all of that good stuff. As always, watch the DIY the whole way through in case we add a tool or sub a tool out or something like that. But with that, let's go ahead and get started with this upgrade. We have 5 19mm lug bolts to remove. We're going to be working on the front passenger side. However, the steps are going to be identical for both the driver and passenger. Now we have the wheel off. We have a good view of the brakes. The first thing we want to make sure is that the T30 is going to free up for the set screw on the rotor. If we can't get that off, there's really no point in going forward. If it's stuck, this one should come off easily because the brakes are not that old, but if it's stuck, you can use a flathead screwdriver through the vanes of the disc, between the caliper, carrier, and the bracket, just to bind that up from spinning on you. I think this one should come out no problem. If we can break it free, we're just going to let it hang out there for now. We'll come back to it when it's time to take off the disc. Next, let's take care of this anti-rattle clip. These can be a little bit tedious. They're kind of big and kind of heavy duty. Sometimes you can get away with just pushing up on them like this and then pulling out, but you're going to need to pry it out. The other thing you can do is literally just use a flathead screwdriver and have that do the dirty work for you, if you will. And pull out. There we go. Now we have that out, I like to turn the caliper towards us. And we're going to work on removing this 7mm bolt, which is going to free up the soft line. And then we're going to take off these 2 dust caps, which we can do now. Those are going to expose the guide pins from the back. All right, let's take care of that 7mm bolt up top. Next, we're going to move on to the 2 11mm hex that hold on our caliper to the caliper carrier. Make sure that 11mm is situated all the way in and break that baby free. I like to kind of cock the tool at an angle, and it puts pressure on the bit from it falling off of the guide pin, and then you can draw them out that way. Now we can start drawing this caliper off. The interior pad is going to come with the caliper. They clip into the piston. The exterior one, I'm just separating it from the caliper now so I don't draw it out and drop it by accident. We can swing this caliper, just place it up top of the dust shield for now. It's pretty light where it's not going to hurt anything up here. But for now, let's pull off this front pad. We're going to ditch this old caliper bracket carrier. That's 2 18mm bolts. We're just going to zap those 2 out now with our impact. But a 1/2-inch ratchet will work well as it's a pretty high torque value for that bolt. Now we'll finish removing the T30 the rest of the way so we can get this old brake disc off. All right, well, I have the caliper perched up here. Let's go ahead and compress that piston in. We're going to keep the interior pad to help compress the piston back in. And we're going to get our tool set up. This should go in very nice and easy. If If you're having a hard time, then there's a chance that you have a problem with the piston itself inside the caliper or the soft line. This car's still fairly new, so I don't suspect that's going to be an issue for us today. It's going in super easily. Sometimes you can even press these in by hand if you're feeling strong, but for us today, the CTA tool is going to do the trick. Once the tool bottoms out, then we'll know we are nice and flush. There we go. Don't force it, or you're just going to damage your tool. Now we're going to pop this pad out. It's pulling towards us. Just a couple clips in the back that hold it in. Let's clean up that caliper a little bit. I'm going to bring it down with a little bit of wire brush just to get any of that excess brake dust off. I'm just going to hook it onto the dust shield there. There's some adhesive left behind from the old pads, so we want to make sure that we get that off as well, whether we use a little bit of brake clean or something like that. And then we can replace that with some paste on the pads. All right, let's grab our paste, prep the surface. We're going to go a little extra where the set screw is going to go. That's going to help the set screw from seizing into the hub, which means you won't ever have to drill it out in the future, and it'll just make it easier for the next person that works on this car. All right, let me grab our new brake disc and our new set screw, and we'll get that baby on there. Just be mindful as you handle your new brake discs that you don't grab them with grimy hands. These aren't like your traditional bare discs that you can just whiz off with brake clean. You want to keep these fresh because you want to protect the coating that's on here. Obviously, you don't want to contaminate the surface either where the pads are going to ride, even though that's going to get cleaned up. But you do want to be mindful that the rest doesn't really get hit by any brake cleaner. So quick clean of the hands, swap out the gloves, whatever you got to do. I'm going to grab our T30 and snug that baby up. All right, with the disc nice and flush against the hub, we're just going to use a 1/4" ratchet. Give it a gentle snug, no more than 10 Newton meters. Now we can get our new bracket on there with our new hardware, so let's do that next. All right, let's get this fresh caliper in here. It's gonna look good. Well, caliper carrier bracket, I should say. Caliper could use a little bit of a paint job or something, maybe. Let's draw these in gently with the impact gun on a low setting. Again, 18mm socket. Now we're gonna switch over to the torque wrench. Torque spec for these 18s is going to be 200 Newton meters. Now it's time to get some pads on. We're gonna get some paste on these clips so that these don't rust in place inside of the caliper piston. Then we're just gonna line this baby up and press it on. And we'll put a little bit of schmoo on the pad's ears as well. That's where they're gonna ride on the carrier. I like to put it on the pads so that we're not getting anything on the carrier where we don't need it or on the brake disc by accident. Just doing the same thing to the other ear on the other side. All right, let's prep the outer pad as well. Try to avoid getting the stuff on the material side of the pad. If you do, just brake clean it off really, really well. I'm gonna slide that baby on. Beautiful. I'm gonna put some paste on the backside of the outer pad's backing here on the caliper itself. And now let's swing this caliper on. Just be mindful not to bind up your soft line if you've been twisting this caliper around, but otherwise really straightforward. These guide pins still have some paste on them from the last job, so we're going to send them back in. But if yours are grimy, just clean them up with a wire wheel, and it's your choice if you want to send them in dry or lubricated. I always lubricate my pins. I've been doing it like that for the last 16 years. Your call. Not recommended or not required by the manufacturer, but pretty much something that most people do during brake jobs. We're going to draw those 11mm hex in gently with the ratchet, and then we will give them a proper torque. Torque spec for these bolts are going to be 57 Newton meters. Boom. Let's put our dust caps back on. And then once these are in, let's secure our 7mm bolt, which is going to secure our soft line to the upright here on the XC90. Just make sure that little tab goes back in the arm. Once we get that started, we'll draw it in with the electric ratchet. No more than 5 Newton meters if you're going to put a torque wrench on this little 7 millimeter bolt. Stops, eighth of a turn, good to rock. All right, let's straighten this puppy out. And now let's get this fun anti-rattle clip on next. This is probably going to be the hardest part of this whole job, and it's just because it's a large clip. We're going to get it started on the back of the bracket on one side, just get it to engage a bit on our caliper, kind of get it snugged up using 2 hands, or maybe one really strong hand. We're going to get it engaged a little bit on the bottom side there, pull back. There we go. Once we get it to catch, push that baby in, make sure it's fully engaged in the caliper right here, and we are good to rock and roll. Let me grab that wheel, we'll get it snugged up in a crisscross pattern, then we'll drop it down and show you what to torque it to. With the car in the ground, we're going to torque these in the same crisscross pattern to 140 Newton meters. Boom, baby. And with that, my good people, that is going to conclude this DIY for today. Overall, a really straightforward and really easy upgrade on the XC90, and just a really easy brake job in general. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments on what we did today, leave those in the comment section below. And if you like this DIY and you want to see more like them, please consider subscribing. We make new ones all the time. As always, thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.